Hello, and welcome back to Zenin Fanfics. Today we're starting part 7 of an exciting new series. What if Deku had blood manipulation quirk? If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe for more content. The story we're featuring is written by Judas Magnus 1994 on archiveofourown.org. You can find all the relevant links in the description, so be sure to check out the author's profile and say hello. Now, let's dive into the story. In Atheon, a country in Europe that was created during the dawn of Quirk's era, when a woman with an earth manipulation quirk created a massive amount of land in an event whose motives and history were lost to time. A war between Humorize and the Galini family was now occurring after the WHA decided to mobilize the heroes all around the world to stop Humorize and the threat of Quirk erasing bullets that had become public knowledge. All the branches of Humorize worldwide were being raided by the heroes of their respective countries, but a special group of heroes was sent to Atheon to put an end to Humorize's main base of operations and the Galini family, which had turned that small country and the neighboring one into a war zone. Humorize's numbers were quite impressive, but some of the members of the Galini family had shown quirks powerful enough to make the WHA consider assembling a group of heroes to enter Atheon to confront them. Izuku wasn't part of that group despite his track record, as the HPSC felt somewhat slighted for the fact that they had ended up being deprived of the chance to not only get their hands of the quirk erasing bullets in Japan thanks to Sir Naitai's decision to order his sidekicks and Mirio to destroy every bullet and paper related to those bullets to prevent people from trying to replicate them, but also because the WHA got wind of those bullets thanks to Izuku's connection with his father, and they considered that in humiliation. All Might and Sir Naitai were part of that group sent to Atheon, while Izuku stayed in Japan, doing his hero job somewhat undisturbed. He ended up taking care of Eri, in a way, as he was the only individual who could deal with her safely thanks to the fact that he could use Erasure to cancel her rewind, and that in a way forced him to slow down a little, considering the messed-up situation in which Eri found herself before being rescued. Izuku had to play the role of a supportive figure for Eri to help her deal with any lingering trauma that she had. Izuku was able to teach Eri how to use her own quirk thanks to how his quirk worked, and even with the help of his mother. The process of helping Eri was a complicated affair that forced Izuku to cut back his heroic activity to procure the help she needed, but Izuku knew that if he refused to help her, then he wouldn't be the kind of hero that he wanted to be. He talked with Ingenium in order to bring her with him when he was doing his part-time work at the Iditen agency, to have her be in a different environment, which was his house, so she could see how heroes worked. Ingenium allowed Izuku that, and every time that he brought Eri with him to the Iditen agency, Himiko was told to just accompany her and help her. That caused that after the first weeks that Izuku brought Eri there, Himiko became a big sister to Eri. A month after All Might left the country to deal with the Galini family and the literal war zone that had become Atheon, Izuku was talking with Ingenium about his sudden influx of students from hero schools that decided to do their hero work studies in the Iditen agency. There are a lot of those students that are curious about where they could find you, since you lack any kind of social presence despite your notoriety. And one of them asked our X account if the rumors about you working here were true, and Ingenium said, "I see. That makes sense." Izuku said he had one account in the past, but the cyberbullying that his classmates from Aldera, as well as the one that he dealt with in real life from their part, made Izuku decide to close that account and never look back to those kinds of social platforms again. Some of those kids want to know how you managed to become a hero so early. Ingenium said, "To be fair, is all thanks to you. You gave me, in a way, the hope and the means to try again to be a hero. Sure, the rest was all my determination and focus, but you helped me to take that first step and shed light on a path that I decided to take." Izuku said, "That is nice to hear." Ingenium said. The conversation then moved to the topic of the hero work studies and why Izuku refused to take part in it. "I do lack any kind of structure to help those people interested in doing a hero work study with me to make the most of that time. I am kind of a hero who isn't attached to any agency, Iditen not included, as I either wander Japan to work alongside other heroes as an independent, or I wait for people to call me for any kind of emergency that requires my particular set of skills to help," Izuku admitted. He did consider that when Kinoko and other people of Class 1B joked with him about having him give them a chance to work with him as sidekicks with the excuse of the hero work studies, but after taking a close look at that and thinking about it, Izuku decided that he wasn't going to make any offers. I see. Maybe it is for the best. Ingenium said. Maybe. Izuku said. The conversation then was interrupted when they saw on the Hero Network that the last sensation on the cyber villains in Japan, the mysterious Uzanon, had already started to run a slandering campaign on the HPSC of Japan by trying to leak some of the most unsavory things that the HPSC had done in the past before the whole Japanese Hero Network was quickly shut down to stop that villain. This guy again, Izuku said. Uzanon is definitely becoming a thorn on the HPSC side, since it started to appear a month ago. Ingenium said. A month ago, Uzanon appeared out of nowhere and tried to leak files about the truth behind Lady Negan's incarceration through the whole Hero Network. But the HPSC managed to stop that leak before someone could take a look at those files. But that was the beginning of this new cyber villain actions that had put the HPSC in a constant state of vigilance because they were afraid of that leak of information for some reason. You can tell me about it? Izuku said. Izuku considered that someone who was able to hack into the Hero Network like that had to be a really good hacker to pull that one off and be able to keep itself out of the eye of the HPSC for so long despite the fact that the HPSC wanted to get that hacker out of the way. It appeared to him that there was still some trouble on the horizon by the looks of it. In an airport in Atheon that was now under the control of the WHA, after the heroes reached the island and managed to secure the airport and part of the adjacent area around it, the heroes were still looking at a makeshift map of the country that they were using to keep track of the areas that were either free of the villain's influence or under their control. A whole month had passed since they had been sent here, and despite what could be considered overkill, considering that both All Might and Star and Stripe were in this group alongside some real heavy-hitter heroes from other countries, the advance of this group to return the order to Atheon and to put an end to Last Bastion of Humorize and to detain the Galini family when they boldly showed themselves in Atheon. The real advance of the heroes in Atheon had been quite slow, but one day almost. All the resistance that the villains had put out during the past month ceased to be. The heroes could have considered it a tactic to make them fall into a false sense of security, but they decided to risk it and then formed a small group that pushed forward to the main location where the base of Humorize was located in Atheon. All Might led the way, but as they reached the main base of Humorize, they were disturbed to see how the number of corpses around them was increasing even before they set foot on the mountain area where Humorize headquarters was located. But as the heroes were still walking forward to try to see what had happened there, their portals made of black mist appeared in 3 particular locations inside the country, and from them, no mist started to appear. A satellite that belonged to the WHA warned them about that fact, but then the communication went off. The heroes had been rendered blind as their communications went off, and then a strange fog started to appear out of nowhere, making any advance more complicated. The satellite tried to reconnect with the heroes that were in Atheon, but for some reason, some kind of interference prevented them from doing that. The satellite then saw how, for some reason, Atheon and Clade had disappeared out of their sight. The people who were monitoring the situation in the WHA headquarters started to panic as they had lost contact with the strongest heroes that were in the world at the moment that had been deployed there, and one whole country had disappeared from their sight for some reason. Nobody knew what was happening right now, but this was not a good sign. In Daika City, the leader of the Meta Liberation Army was now seeing how his precious army had been scattered through the 4 winds by a group of individuals that laid waste to their city. Nine decided to attack the city after he had laid a trap on Atheon that would leave All Might and those heroes that joined him in their attempt to liberate Atheon trapped on that island for a while by having 3 Nomus with copies of his weather manipulation Quirk stationed there to create multiple adverse climates in the area that would not only keep the heroes trapped there, but also prevent any kind of support from the WHA, as some of those climatic conditions were able to disable communications that the heroes relied on. He decided to personate himself in Atheon a couple of weeks ago in the middle of a fight between the leader of Humorize and a man who was looking like All Might in order to try to recruit them for his plan. The one of Humorize refused to listen to him, and Nine killed him on the spot. The All Might lookalike was somewhat more reasonable, and after trading some blows, they came to an understanding between himself and the Galini family. In exchange for leaving Europe and America to the Galini family, Both organizations would work together in order to establish a superhuman society where the hierarchy is determined by one's strength alone, making heroes and villains irrelevant, and power the only thing that matters. Nine could have dealt with the Galini family as quickly as he had dealt with the leader of Hamurais, but Nine was curious to see how the world would react when a look-alike of All Might appeared and acted in a way that wasn't heroic at all. AFO wanted to be a demon lord that dominated the whole world, but Nine wanted to create a perfect world for those that are strong, a world where those with power wouldn't be oppressed by the weak, and the only thing that mattered was the power of the individual. Things like gender, race, orientation, or if you had a quirk that made you a heteromorph person were irrelevant in the world that he envisioned for him and his friends. So Nine was willing to allow people like Valdo Galini and his group to join forces with him and to let them take control of Europe and America if he wanted, and as long as they were strong enough to succeed, then they had the right to do it. But if they tried to take him out, then as long as they managed to do it, they had the right to try it. It was a shame that Rikiya Yatsubashi showed to be quite a submissive person after his defeat despite being a powerful individual. But as long as he was useful to him, then he would tolerate him and the remaining members of the MLA that had survived their fight. So now that he had quickly gathered a group of powerful people, then Nine felt that the time to take over Japan was going to come really soon. The aftermath of the events in Daika City was revealed a couple of weeks later to the public and the rest of the hero community at large because the HPSC was unable to prevent the leak of information that they had compiled about the events that happened there, and there was a lot to unpack there. The main source of said info was the now quirkless and recently deceased Hawks, who had been rendered quirkless by Nine when the supervillain didn't buy his excuses for joining the MLA and decided to beat him to an inch of his life after stealing his quirk to not only get rid of the mole in the organization, but also show what would happen to those who weren't fully loyal to his cause. Hawks managed to barely hang on to life before he was rescued by some agents of the HPSC, but not even quickly taking him to a hospital was enough to save his life, and then he died a week after being rescued, but was able to at least reveal what had happened in Daika City before expiring. The HPSC could have tried to get in contact with Izuku to try to save his life, but since Hawks had lost his quirk, and that meant that he had lost any usefulness, then the HPSC decided to not bother themselves with that, and let a loyal agent of theirs die in pain in order to make sure that whatever Hawks knew about their shady business died with him. Unfortunately for them, Yuzanon's leaks also contained the HPSC shady business, like threatening Endeavor with revealing the identity of the pyromaniac that was part of the Tokyo incident as his son, unless he followed their order, among other things, alongside their leak of what happened on Daika City, and that caused a massive public uproar, just like Yuzanon wanted. But unfortunately, said public uproar came at the worst moment possible. The WHA was still trying to see what was going on in the area of Atheon, but the climate around the island prevented them from even reaching them by air or sea, so they weren't able at the moment to deal with the corruption of the HPSC in Japan. And then Nine and his group decided to make a move and try to get rid of them under the thought that they would be unopposed by society and a lot of the heroes that were now denouncing the HPSC and refused to work until something would be done with the corruption of the HPSC, but they did found some resistance on their way to get rid of the HPSC. Izuku Midoriya was alongside some heroes and the police to detain and send to jail all the people of the HPSC for the crimes that they had committed, so they could quell some of the public unrest and restore some semblance of order until the WHA would be able to intervene in Japan. The reveal of the disappearance of All Might and some of the strongest heroes in the world had caused some public unrest in the whole world, but only in Japan the situation devolved to this level. Mirio was now at the moment going with him as his sidekick to allow him to act in this situation without having other people making too many questions about why someone with a temporary hero license was there. But as they were dragging the Madam President and some other people into police cars to send them to Tartarus, multiple portals made of mist appeared, and then Nine and his coalition of villains appeared from it. The sight of Valdo Galini, the true name of the man, that now wore an appearance similar to All Might, caused some shock and concerns around the heroes and the police. But neither Izuku nor Mirio were fooled. Kudos for the All Might's cosplay, but if your plan is to cause confusion by having an All Might look-alike to do evil, then I am afraid that this cheap knockoff of All Might still is missing some important details to actually fool everyone. Izuku said as he looked at the All Might look-alike that now was getting somewhat upset after hearing someone calling him a cheap knockoff. Yeah, I do have to agree with Midoriya. All Might's eyebrows aren't that bushier, his skin is not that tanned, his hair tufts aren't that straighter and thicker, and his nose is less hooked than yours, and your eyes aren't blue as his. So everyone that knows All Might well enough can see that you aren't him. Mirio said his words did make the other heroes actually take a closer look at the All Might look-alike, and saw those details that made them realize that whatever was in front of them, it wasn't All Might. With that realization, the heroes managed to compose themselves, and then both sides started to fight in the vicinity of the main building of the HPSC. The heroes wanted to give the police enough time to take the Madam President and those who were detained to jail, while other heroes had to try to evacuate the few civilians in the area so the heroes could fight undisturbed. The few heroes in the area were now facing an impressive number of villains that had followed Nine to the mainland after they were taken to Nabu Island. And even then, Nine decided to leave a few people in Nabu just in case, but since he had stolen Kirojiri's quirk before getting rid of him, then he could mobilize them in case that he needed them. But Nine was confident in his chances here. After all, since the man that killed AFO wasn't here, then he wasn't in real danger of dying as AFO did. But he wasn't going to underestimate both the kid that was All Might's successor, or that one kid that was making waves and was in a way involved with All Might considering his track record in the past. Nine was curious to see if those two were powerful enough to survive against him and his allies, as he considered those two an obstacle to overcome to bring his ideal world to fruition. He would deal with All Might and the other heroes that were trapped in Atheon later after he managed to conquer Japan to establish the basis of his perfect society there. But he would have to get rid of those that stood in his way now. And since a lot of heroes in society weren't here to oppose him, then only this small group of heroes were what stopped him from attaining his victory. So as the battle started and the heroes and villains started to duke it out, Nine decided to choose one of those two kids to get rid of first. And for some reason, he chose Midoriya. Nine saw how Izuku quickly dispatched some of those mooks of the MLA like they were nothing, and before Izuku could move to give support to Mirio, who was fighting against Valdo, he opened a portal made of mist and decided to warp him to Nabu, so he could fight him undisturbed alongside his comrades. Izuku had barely any time to react as a portal of black mist caught him by surprise, and then he ended up in a strange place. "Where the hell am I now?" Izuku said. He was now seeing in front of him a narrow path that crossed the sea and ended on an island, the beginning of which was flanked by two statues of beasts. Izuku then saw that near one of the statues, there was a plaque that said Mount Shirayama and an arrow that pointed to that island. "Why, that name is familiar to me," Izuku said, knowing that he had heard that name recently for some reason, but now he was unable to remember why. Before he had time to think about that, multiple portals of mist appeared, and then a group of foreign villains dressed in fancy clothes appeared alongside some civilians that had some support gear. "You must be that brat that had been making some noise in the hero community," a short elderly man with pale skin and a pronounced upper body said. Izuku looked at the man and got ready to attack, but before he could even move, multiple villains, gnomes, and monsters that came straight from an old RPG appeared out of nowhere, and Izuku was forced into a defensive position as he endured that assault while looking for a chance to retaliate. "You're at least resilient, I give you that, but you're no match for us," that man said as he was moving his allies around to prevent Izuku from being able to fully defend himself from that relentless assault. He enjoyed seeing how Izuku was being shot, impaled, and bounced around the area as he bled out from his injuries. "Ugh!" Izuku then was sent flying into one of those beast statues, and then he fell to the ground. He wasn't moving at all, and that made the villain decide to get close to put him down himself, but not before pulling all his allies and those creatures back to the base. "What a disappointment you turn out to be. At least it was fun to see you being thrown around like the trash you are." The old man then pulled a gun and decided to grab Izuku by the head to force him to look at him before pulling the trigger. "You," Izuku weakly said. He saw how the old man was looking clearly amused at his situation, and then the old man spoke again. "Any last words, you stupid brat?" the old man said, looking at how Izuku closed his eyes before opening them again with a red glow that scared the old man. "You fell for it," Izuku said, and then all the blood that he had bled out moved from the floor and impaled the man from multiple sides, making him drop the gun in pain, and then he saw how Izuku got up from the ground looking like he hadn't been injured at all. "What the?" the old man shouted in pain. He was unable to understand how the kid was still alive despite the relentless assault that he had endured. "Let's see what you have for me," Izuku said, and then he used his blood to grasp the genetic quirk factor of the villain in order to destroy it. "What are you doing?" the old man said, feeling like something was going on inside his body as he felt a part of himself being destroyed without knowing what was going on. "Spatial excursion. A quirk like yours could have been used for the greater good, but it is a shame that its wielder ended up being a villain. So I decided to destroy it," Izuku said after he had destroyed his genetic quirk factor to render that villain quirkless for good. Izuku did assimilate that quirk into himself, and then he saw how the man was now panicking after he heard that his quirk was being destroyed, and he was unable to do anything to stop it. "No," the old man said. Izuku then recalled all that blood that was impaling the villain, and then he grabbed the man by the neck before shoving him into a wall. "You're going to tell me what is going on in this place, buddy, or I will let you die here out of blood loss," Izuku said, coldly glaring at the old man who was now fearing for his life. "You can't do that. You are a hero," the old man said, quite scared for his life now after hearing that kid telling him that he was going to let him die should he refuse to comply with his demand. "I am a hero, but I am willing to kill or let someone die if the situation requires it. And I will warn you, I already ended someone's life before, so if you believe that I am bluffing, then I assure you that I will not hesitate to put you down," Izuku said while glaring at the man with a cold and menacing stare. I can't," the old man said, being afraid of his life now that he was feeling that cold stare at him. "Then I am afraid that this is the end for you, buddy," Izuku said, and let the man go from his grip, who then fell to the ground while trembling in fear. His body was now feeling cold. "Wait," the man said in a desperate way as he saw how Izuku decided to walk away to Mount Shirayama. Izuku stopped on the spot and then looked at the man. "I will talk. I will tell you anything. Just don't let me die like this," the old man said, as the coldness that embraced his body was scaring him. Izuku then decided to get near the man, and after he looked at him, the old man revealed everything. He told him about how a villain named Nine worked himself to Atheon as they were fighting Hummerais, and after they struck a deal, they decided to turn the whole country into a trap for All Might and the other heroes. He also talked about a woman named Anna Servino that had been brought to the island that the Galini family wanted to use to get rid of Nine at a later date, and then he revealed about the location of Nine's base of operation in Mount Shirayama, hidden inside the ruins of an ancient castle that was located there. The villain then started to feel how that cold sensation started to quickly disappear, and then he saw that his injuries had disappeared, but before the man could celebrate the fact that he wasn't going to die, Izuku incapacitated him with a quick hit in the stomach that rendered him unconscious. "I was never going to let you die, but I never said nothing about making you think that you were going to die. People like you tend to crack when death approaches. And if I made your body think that you're going to die by messing with your body temperature a little," Izuku said to the unconscious man before walking away from Real to Mount Shirayama, feeling somewhat ashamed of using some of the things that he studied about human anatomy to make that villain feel a simulation of what a body feels when it's dying. But considering that those people wanted to kill him, then making feel the cold embrace of death without killing them was more humane than what they had in mind for him. Izuku already healed him before he let him fall to the ground and used Todoroki's eyesight of his quirk to reduce the body temperature of the man and not to cause him to feel cold and not to think that he was dying by freezing a little the bloodstains in the man's body. That worked that well because Izuku just made the man believe the fact that Izuku was willing to kill him if necessary. Now that he had enough information about the situation, then it was time for him to take the fight straight to the last remnants of AFO. He just hoped for Mirio to succeed in his fight on the mainland while he was dealing with this mess. "Camille is taking too long," a lanky young man in a mulberry pink tuxedo said. He and his associates left Camille to kill that brat because they believed he was not a threat anymore. Camille insisted on killing that pest himself. But the fact that some time had passed and Camille wasn't back at ruins inside the castle started to make them think that something wrong could have happened out there. "I should have stayed there and executed the brat myself, not let Camille play around with that mortally wounded brat," a man with an eerie appearance said. He had purple skin, small black eyes, no visible mouth, and a face with a pointed muzzle and jagged fin-shaped ears that stick upward at an angle. He was the only person in the upper echelons of the Galini family who preferred to kill his targets as quick as possible rather than play and torment them. But Valdo ordered him to stay there in order to prepare for their incoming betrayal of Nine and his people, and since his quirk allowed him to create a large dome-shaped wave of energy that deactivates the quirks of anyone within its range while also being able to make a smaller bubble within the field which kept all quirks active. Then he was waiting for the order to activate his quirk to neutralize everyone in this new base that wasn't his allies to allow them to get rid of Nine and his comrades. It's okay, Paolo. Camille is probably dragging that brat's execution to make it as painful as possible. A smaller old man that was sitting on the shoulder of a really big man said. Everyone else that wasn't Valdo was still on the island underground base, just in case. And then, before any of them could even continue the conversation, that man whose name was Paolo vanished out of thin air. A thing that normally would have to be a reason to be concerned about, but since they believe that said disappearance was caused by Camille's quirk, then those people of the Galini family weren't concerned about it, but they were right and wrong at the same time. Giulio Gandini was now inside the hidden base in which the villains and the Galini family had Anna Servino contained, and even though he managed to infiltrate the base and reach the area in which Anna was confined, he was now at the mercy of Deborah Galini, a couple of goons of the Galini family with guns, and a woman with red hair that had used said hair to tip apart the prosthetic parts of his body that he used to compensate for the loss of his right arm, left leg, and right eye. He lowered his guard for a second as he saw how Anna's hair was fully black, as she was suffering a severe seizure from the backlash of her quirk, and then he was attacked from behind and reduced to that pitiful state. The pain he was enduring was incredible, but even that didn't stop him from being more concerned about Anna's condition than his, who was suffering constantly thanks to the curse that was her quirk that only brought her misery and misfortune. And now, in this desperate situation, he was almost willing to pray for any kind of salvation for her life, even willing to give up as if that was the price needed to pay for her safety. But since when things had gone in her favor, he felt his consciousness fading away as he died from blood loss. And the last thing he heard before he lost consciousness was Anna gasping in pain from the seizure that was overwhelming her. But then he suddenly was jolted awake and was outside that villain base. Who? Gildo weakly said. He saw through his eye that a green-haired boy with a white suit stained by blood was doing something with a quirk that was making him feel better. You were lucky. I'm still trying to figure out how spatial excursion could be used to move people around with ease, but at least it allowed me to pull you and that black-haired girl out of there, the boy said. Gildo saw that Anna was also there. Then he scanned his surroundings with his sight and saw that he was inside a forest from where he could see the ruined castle. He then unconsciously tried to move his right arm, and was not only surprised to see that where his prosthetic arm was before, now a real arm was in place, and that the eye that he lost when the Galini family attacked him to kidnap Anna was now back in place. He looked at the sky and saw that they were trapped inside a small red dome, but he and that boy were inside a bubble that allowed him to see things clear inside the bubble, while the outside had a red tint that was caused by that red dome. I don't know what is happening to her, but I can't get closer to healing her, because her quirk caused me severe pain. I have to improvise on the fly, and use a little something to suppress her quirk, but that also prevents me from doing anything else. The boy said. Said boy was Izuku, and he had managed to use spatial excursion to drag one of the most threatening members of the Galini family out of the base to neutralize him, after assimilating one of his genetic quirk factors before rendering the man quirkless. Izuku never thought that he would need to rely on that quirk that he recently assimilated that early, but to survive whatever was that girl's quirk doing to him. Izuku had to use a razor spot in a desperate gambit to survive. It's her quirk. Anna's quirk is always active and causes her to suffer from seizures and extreme pain after a certain period of time, no matter what, because of the strain that her body endures by having that quirk constantly active. When left untreated, her quirk can completely overtake her, making those seizures and pain even worse. That black hair of hers means that her quirk is almost taking over her. Gildo said, in a normal situation, he wouldn't even bother to explain anything about Anna's quirk to keep her safe, but considering that now that safety relied on that boy's quirk, that not only suppressed her quirk from getting worse, but also restored his body back to the point that he could use his quirk again, then he felt more talkative. Yeah, I could endure that strange pain that came over me thanks to my quirk, but I really don't know what to do aside from creating this dome in a hurry to keep it contained. I recently learned how to do that, so I'm still a little trying to get the hang of it. Izuku said. He was aware in a way thanks to that man's body language that he was hiding something about that girl, but considering that he extracted that information from those two mafiosos, then he wasn't going to reveal that he knew about overmodification. I don't know how you saved my life and dragged both Anna and me out of that place, but I don't trust you. But at the same time, you had somehow given me the chance to save her life. Julio said as he looked at his right arm, feeling now how he could use his quirk again. Unless your quirk allows you to cancel quirks that had gone into overdrive, then I am afraid that the chances to save her life for good are quite small. Izuku said. What did you say? Julio said, looking at Izuku with some anger in his eyes. I'm not here for sightseeing. I am here to put an end to the villain coalition between the Galini family and whatever Thing 9 is now. I interrogated two important members of the Galini family before reaching you and that girl, and my initial plan was to take her out of here before continuing my duty. But those two villains had said that the medication that they were using to stabilize her was losing its effectiveness, and that in case that a man named Paolo was put out of commission, then they would rely on her quirk nasty side effects by overdosing her with trigger before getting out of the way to turn her into a weapon of mass destruction to kill 9 and his crew. Izuku admitted. The old man with the funny nose told him about that desperate plan that wasn't feasible when he destroyed his quirk, and then the heteromorph man that had the quirk factor that he was using now revealed to him the finer details of that plan. Julio tried to keep his cool, but to hear what the Galini family had planned to do to Anna made his blood boil. That plan now is out of the question for those villains because not only the girl is out of their hands, but the guy that was meant to teleport everyone away from her after overdosing her is permanently out of commission as I destroyed his quirk. Izuku said. The mention of a quirk being destroyed surprised Julio. What? Did you say destroyed his quirk? Izuku saw how the man looked at him with some interest in his eyes. Yeah, I can do that thanks to the way my quirk works, but it's not like I can do anything about her situation. She is a civilian and an innocent, so unless she gives me permission, then I won't touch her quirk factors. Izuku said. I see. You should move and take her to a safer place. This place is going to become far more dangerous than it needs to be really soon, and I can't assure your safety. Izuku said. He then got up and after dispelling the dome, he saw how the man touched the girl with his now regrown right arm, and then a blue light was enveloping his right hand. Izuku knew that the man was using his quirk to temporarily suppress her quirk. I will. But can you listen to me for a second? Julio said, carefully considering what he was about to ask Izuku. But if that allowed Anna to live a better life, then so be it. Izuku decided to listen to the man. And while he considered that what he wanted could take some time that he wasn't able to waste, Izuku decided to just listen to the plan that the man had and decided to help that girl named Anna to live free of the burden that she was carrying thanks to her quirk. Meanwhile in Japan, Mirio Togata and the few heroes that were there were putting up an impressive resistance against Valdo, and all the villains and Nomus that were there despite the fact that they were outnumbered. Mirio had time in those past months after being healed up to Master OFA, and with all his quirks unlocked and being almost really close to reaching 100% of OFA's power, Mirio Togata was able to compensate for the lack of manpower on the hero's side by a lot. The civilians that had been rescued and were trying to evacuate the city were sharing recordings of how the heroes were fighting against that villainous caricature of All Might, and all those villains despite the lack of support from the public that were decrying them as frauds thanks to the actions of the HPSC, and a lot of the focus came to Mirio and how he was standing tall and proud at that relentless assault to protect the country from those dangerous villains. That man that whore All Might's face was trading blows with Mirio as he wanted to see how really strong that boy that had become the next symbol of peace to the eyes of the world as he was known to the public. But not even all the power boost that he received from overmodification was allowing him to fully hurt Mirio, who bounced back from every hit and retaliated even harder. You are powerful enough to be All Might's apprentice, Valdo said. His previous confidence and arrogance were near in shambles now after seeing the amount of resilience that the heroes from Japan were showing to him. He was trading blows with Mirio, and he decided to try to talk to distract him a little. Maybe But All Might never chose me as his successor because of that power. In fact, I was an unfit choice in the beginning, as someone that I consider far more worthy of this privilege than me was denied this chance. Mirio admitted. He ended up becoming friends in a way with Izuku, and one of the things that he admired from him was his determination to be a hero and to get things done no matter what. Mirio remembered how he ended up killing AFO to save his life when he was caught off guard, and now, after learning the truth about Stain's downfall thanks to Ingenium, he gained a level of respect for Izuku, as he saw Izuku as someone whose will to be a hero was even stronger than him, to the point that not even in a dark moment in his life, he decided to not give up his dream and instead decided to be a hero in his own way. "What did you say?" Valdo asked. "Izuku Midoriya is far more worthy of being All Might's successor than me. But in the end, he chose to be a hero in the only way that he could feel proud about himself. One that cared more for being a hero with his actions over the glamour and glory that came with this job," Mirio said, as he then activated Danger Sense to predict Valdo's incoming attack, and then he used his permeation to perform one of his ultimate moves. Mirio faked going for Valdo's eyes with one of his fingers. Valdo reacted as he expected, and then he phased his arm through their face, before contorting himself in the air and delivering a powerful punch to Valdo's stomach that sent him into the air. Mirio then activated Black Whip and decided to take Valdo from a spin in the air by treating him like he was a kite inside a tornado, spinning in place to cause Valdo to get dizzy while mid-air before slamming him into a Nomo. The impact was strong enough to knock him out, and then Mirio saw how reinforcements appeared, but they weren't villains, but heroes. Mirio saw how some of those heroes who refused to continue their work alongside others who were under public scrutiny appeared and joined the fight, with Endeavor being there as well. The villains weren't expected those reinforcements, and since they had been cut off from any way to escape, then the combined group of villains from Europe and Japan alongside the Nomus were dispatched in 30 minutes after Dark Might was incapacitated. But Mirio knew that the job wasn't truly over as Izuku was still missing, and he didn't know where he was. "Hold on, Midoriya. I will find you and bring you reinforcements," Mirio said as he prayed for Izuku's safety. Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku Had Blood Manipulation Quirk. We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to Judas Magnus, 1994, for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on archiveofourown.org for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Zenin Fanfics for more intriguing explorations into fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we love hearing your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section. See you soon in the next video.